Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live with Lisa. Today, my special guest host is Hal Fair from Conair, and we have some really fun stuff coming up, so stick around. If you're just joining us, and as you're joining us, if you don't mind, drop a little hi in the comments for Hal and I to know that you're there. Maybe even tell me where you're visiting or tuning in from, and that helps me to know that you can hear us okay. Hal is a regional vice president for Conair Corporation with over 30 years of experience selling major brands into retail. We got to know each other back when I was the vice president of business development at Scuncy, actually even prior to that when I was inventing and still licensing before they offered me the opportunity to work with them in-house as well. And so we go way back, have some fun stories there. And in addition to being having been very successful working his way up the ranks in corporate America and sales and becoming the regional vice president at Conair, he's an incredibly down-to-earth person, super easy to talk to. And so I'm so grateful to have you here today. Thank you, Hal, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Great to be here, Lisa. Always look forward to working with you or doing anything we can together. So thanks for asking me.
Thank you. You're the best. You know, it's funny. Hal reached out last week. He just kind of popped in and said hi to me after seeing my guest last week, and I was able to rope him in. I said, "Oh, that means you're volunteering to be on the show." So yeah. I roped him in, but thankfully he was willing to do it. So we'll just dive right in. As always, folks, if you're just tuning in for the first time, we do this as a live Q&A. This is a chance for you to ask all of your burning innovation questions. It doesn't matter what stage or phase you're at in this process. Or even if it's relevant to specifically what we're talking to. So I'm just going to kick things off with a few questions for Hal and help us kind of help you understand what the expertise is that you have sitting in front of you. So if there is something specific or relevant that you'd like to learn more about, you certainly can pop those questions in. We'll take them on as they come in on a first come, first serve basis. So let's see here. I think that's all my notes that I had to get out of the way.
Okay.
Before we jump into questions, and I have a ton for you myself, I know I'm going to have to keep my mouth shut so that I can ask the questions that are coming in through our feed. But can you give us just a little bit of a background, Hal, on what a day in the life of a regional vice president at Conair looks like?
So sure. So Conair, as everybody probably knows, or most people should know, is a company that makes hair appliances like hair dryers and curling irons, and also the brushes and accessories, which are under the Conair name or are under the Scuncy name. So if you go into any retailer, any major retailer, a Walmart, a Target, or a CVS, and you go to where the hair accessories are sold, you'll see hundreds of our items. I work in the hair accessories and brush division primarily. There was a time when I was doing some things for the other division, with the appliance division, but primarily I'm in the accessories and brush division. So what my role is as a regional vice president is basically I have a select base of accounts that I call on, retailers that I call on, and it's in some businesses you would have a regional manager or a district manager that's kind of focused on geography. The way it works for me is that I'm focused more on accounts. It's more account based than geography based. So I have, well, of course, in the last year or so, we really haven't gone anywhere, but everything's been virtual. But I have accounts that are in Texas. I used to handle all of Mexico and the Caribbean for Conair before we went and made that a direct business. So the title really just means that I call on major accounts. So for example, my largest account right now is Rite Aid, which is a 2,500 store drug chain. They're not in every state. So some of the people in the room here might not know who they are, but they do have 2,500 stores, and there are three major drug chains in the United States. There's Rite Aid, there's CVS, and there's Walgreens. So Rite Aid competes with those two other accounts. And if you go into any one of those Rite Aids, you'll see about 400 items that I sell to Rite Aid. So if you do a quick calculation, you can see how quickly it adds up. 400 items times 2,500 stores. And I'm not going to give away any secrets, but
a lot of money to make.
Yeah. So it's merchandise that just doesn't ever tire or go away. Of course, we refresh the look of it and we have new products, but it's an everyday business, much like what we'll call liquid goods, like shampoo or conditioner or hair color. It's often sold right next to it, and it sells every day, and it sells great, and the retailer likes it, typically because it's a fairly high retail margin category for the retailers. And it never comes back. It never breaks down. It's never defective. It never gets returned. And it makes money for everybody. And it's a really good product line. So that's kind of what I do. I have a catalog of major accounts that I call on. And up until March of last year, that took me on the road probably 2 or 3 nights a week, every week. And since then, my American Airlines miles have not accumulated too much. So I'm stuck at 995,000 on the million miles.
So
So
close.
I just need another couple of trips, but that's what I do.
Come visit me in Arizona.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so before I get too much into the innovation side of things, and of course, that's obviously very important to our audience. Let's talk a little bit about merchandising, because it just occurred to me that it's something that inventors don't understand when they're deciding on the size and price and all that stuff. First of all, who decides what's going on the shelf at a store? Is that really the buyer, or is that you?
So that's a really good thing to talk about. And my experience, albeit limited, with inventors is, yeah, they have the product and they should. This is something I invented or created. Here it is. And a lot of thought is not given to merchandising. So to answer that question specifically, that I will make a presentation of what I think the retailer should carry. And at times, that also will include merchandise from my competitors. And so what's happened in this business in the last 20 or so years is the buyers have too much to do. So they've kind of pushed some of that responsibility onto a leading vendor, and they call it category captaincy. So we're the leading vendor. So some people might come to us and say, look, Conair, here's the hair accessories business. You take it. You tell me what to carry. If it works and our business is good, everybody's happy. If it doesn't work, then maybe we'll have something to talk about next year. But I will make a presentation as to what they should be carrying. And then, of course, that final decision is made at the retailer, typically with a buyer. If it's a big program or we're taking over a big chunk of business from somebody else, a lot of times a divisional vice president will have to get involved. But more or less, it is a decision between me and my customer. We decide what to put in and what to not put in. As far as the packaging and things like that, that's done not by me. We have a whole internal team of marketing and creative people, as you well know, Lisa, that work to create that kind of a product.
Right. Okay. So if you didn't catch that, folks, mind blown. They actually help buyers decide even what competitors' products will go.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes,
right.
Yeah.
I remember when in my stint at Scuncy, there was one room that was dedicated to merchandising, and it had the walls set up with all of the SKUs on them and being moved around by the team to decide how it would be laid out. I mean, even so much as what would be at eye level, above eye level, down towards the floor, everything was being decided internally.
So just to give you a little bit of a story on that, about the time that you're talking about, I don't know how old everybody is here in the room, but
across the board,
Kmart used to be the leading retailer in America. And I think they maybe have 50 stores left in the country today, but they did have 2,100 stores at one time, and they did as much business as Walmart does. And when I was getting started with Scuncy was the brand. We were acquired by Conair. So Scuncy is, and it looks like scrunchy. That's the kind of the name that everybody knows. We were not doing a lot of business with Kmart, and we started to grow our business little by little. and we would recommend certain things that were successful, and our competition at the time was not being as aggressive or as assertive. So we, as we started to grow our business, we were made this category captain. So in essence, the buyer said to us, so listen, we trust you. We have a good history with you. Everything that your company does seems to work. Why don't you tell me what my merchandise assortment would be? So that puts us in a little bit of a dilemma, because from a sales perspective, I want everything. So
Right.
I want to have all the business. So what we did was we created a job for another individual who was supposed to be divorced or separated from the sales side. So they were supposed to be completely objective, and they would say, here's the merchandise we ought to have. Conair should have 70%, Goody should have 20%, Wet Brush, whatever it was. And the reason we did that was because even though I could be objective, it's really not in my nature to be that objective. So this made it really seem like everybody's best interest was at hand, and it works. So that's the kind of thing that whole category.
That's where it all started?
Yeah, that's kind of where it started for me.
Oh, I did not know that.
The Kmart business started for me, and eventually we had at one point that we entered into a contract with Kmart, and we had 100% of the business. So we went from having a handful of SKUs to a bigger handful, 4 feet, 8 feet, and at one point, right when we got acquired, we had when Kmart was still Kmart, we had all of that business. So it was our largest account, and it was really a significant part of the company's business.
So we're going to jump into questions here in
Yeah.
a minute. I want to address innovation. I'll tell one very quick story too before we do that with regard to Kmart. I flew out to Germany with Neil and Lou back in the day at Scunsy, and Lester, who is right. I don't know if he was VP of sales or president. I'm not sure. And they were walking in front of me, and I was so green. I think I was 27 years old, and they were talking about the fact that Kmart had just filed bankruptcy. And what were they going to do, and how were they going to insulate themselves against the loss? Because we did have such a major share in that company in terms of real estate. And I had just learned about what the joke was, vulture capital, but it was factoring. And so I just kind of jumped into this conversation that I was not invited. I was shadowing. And so what about, just using factoring? And I swear Neil turned, you remember Neil, he looked at me, gave me this look like, did you just speak? Did words just come out of your face? I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was, oh my God, okay, never talk again. And Lester elbowed me and said, kid, sometimes you need to learn when to just shut the hell up.
Okay, yeah.
It was one of the best lessons of my life, though. I was so excited, but so green. I just needed to be learning, not trying to solve it.
Yeah, of course, a lot of people did that with the factoring there. I mean, that's...
And it made sense. It made sense.
Yeah.
So which feels good, but I still have no business talking.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my background. Yeah, with Kmart, I remember that well. So innovation, how does innovation play a role, or how does marketing engage, or whatever at Conair, which tends to be, I think, a good rule of thumb. I know how you do it. So this is pretty much standard in how most companies do it. When do you get engaged, and at what level does innovation play a role in what you do?
Okay, so when the average layperson thinks about let's take hair brushes as a category.
Okay.
They'll think of, well, I have a brush, I use it every day, and when it gets dirty enough or I lose it, I go and buy another one. And if you walk into any given retailer, you'll see maybe 45, 50 different brushes. Mm-hmm. So how does that get there? So what'll happen is, for example, right now we're working on 2023. So the design people or the innovators like you, Lisa, or the marketing department will say, here's what we anticipate our brush business being. We're going to have these colors. We're going to have these features. If you look at the hair appliance business, which is hair dryers and curling irons and things like that, you'll see over the years things like ceramic coatings and tourmaline coatings. These are the kinds of innovation that will drive that business. And in the case of hair accessories, I mean, it's not that exciting sometimes. I mean, if somebody needs something, they're going to go and buy it. But we want to make sure that it's always fresh and that it's always given a reason for somebody to buy another brush or to buy, scrunchie. We joke about scrunchies as it's been around. The 90s are back, but scrunchies are sold everywhere, and they keep selling. But what do you do? I mean, you have to innovate. So you come up, different fabrics, different colors, whatever happens to be. Sometimes there's licenses with movies or television shows. So if you look at the shampoo business, I mean, it seems like every year there'll be this major launch, and it's Pantene or it's whoever, and it's essentially the same product. I mean, you can't really create new shampoo. Yeah, you can add vitamin E or some kind of oil to it, but it's shampoo. And sometimes they'll change the packaging, and they'll say, "Well, this is a launch. This is time to reinvent the wheel." And it works because if people are all, especially when it comes to their appearance and their hair, they always want what's new. They always want what's the best, the latest, and it's not that expensive. If a woman needs to go buy a dress and a pair of shoes for an outfit, that could be expensive. But if she wants to buy a nice fancy barrette or a pretty brush, it's a few bucks, and it creates a good feeling just for a few bucks. But the innovation is done by a dedicated marketing team. It's a huge department, and they do all kinds of testing and all kinds of focus groups, and they are the ones with our input, of course, but they are the ones that will decide what the product assortment will be going forward.
So when somebody submits a new product, actually, just so y'all know, if you're just joining us, please drop your questions in the comment section, and we'll take them on a first come, first serve basis. You don't need to wait, drop them at any time. We'll get to them. Back in the day when I was working with you all at Scunsy, people submitted their products to us. We had a team meeting. It went basically through marketing, sales, and the CEO collaborated on whether or not this made sense.
Right.
And one of the steps that we took in that process was sometimes giving them to sales and asking you to go out and show it to a buyer and get their feedback. Do you still do that?
So when we were doing that kind of thing, we were a much smaller company.
Yeah.
And so we will, if we have the kind of relationship with a customer that is both ways, that we feel we can give them confidential information and they can give us confidential information, yes, we will do that. We'll go to them and say, we want to let you know what we're thinking of. Here are a couple of things we're thinking of, and you can't just show it to them. This is why we're having leopard print scrunchies because in all the fashion magazines you see leopard prints and it's all the handbags and the shoes. Here's what we're thinking of doing. We're thinking of coming out with this exclusive line of leopard prints, animal prints. What do you think? And a lot of times that works really well in our favor, because if you get somebody involved with you at the buying level, they almost become your partner. So if somebody says, yeah, I like that, I think it would sell, it's very difficult for them at that point to not take it, to not buy it. Sometimes they don't care. Sometimes they'll say, listen, it's your business, you're the expert, you tell me what you think is best, and we'll take it from there. But sometimes the customer will want to be more involved, and in that case, we're able to engage them more as a partner from the ground up.
Sure, because they have ownership, right? They feel like they have a stake in it if they've had influence in its development.
Yeah.
Do you still do D boards?
So it's changed a lot with technology. I mean, a lot can be done with a laptop, and it's a lot more effective. So we do that a little bit, but there were times, Lisa knows, there were times when we would travel with trunks of boards with product on it, and we would have to rent U-Hauls sometimes to go from city to city to show our merchandise. Yeah, so from that perspective, things are a little bit easier. Technology has made things a little bit easier for us.
That's awesome. So you're still using the same concept, the principle of displaying it just digitally, showing, for example, your leopard print. You would have, I assume, images of all the different products that show here's the line concept.
Or we would have live samples, a few live samples. I mean, we no longer bring 1,000 items where we go. When we were doing it 25 years ago, we didn't have that much business. So maybe we only made 50 items. So it was or 100 items, so we could do it. Yeah. Now we just have thousands of items, so it's physically not possible to do that. So, but we will of course have some live samples. Sometimes we'll send them in afterward, or we'll have a piece of fabric or something like that, or you can show how that particular innovation is used in other industries. So we can have that as well.
So one of the most common questions that I get from inventors is, can I license to Walmart, Target, CVS, Rite Aid, whatever? The answer is generally no. Can you explain why?
Yeah, so I get a lot of that too. People know, friends will know I'm in the business.
Yeah.
Hey, I invented a comb. It makes you look 10 years younger. And I'd like to sell it to retail. What do you think I can do with it? And I always tell them the same thing. I say, it is possible. You can develop this product, this innovation, and you can take it to every retailer that you want to sell it to. And you can develop the packaging. You can find a source to manufacture it. You can go to the UPC Council and get a number. You can do all the shipping and drop tests and logistics, and you can build a warehouse, or you can rent a warehouse. You can do it. It is possible. If it was me, I wouldn't do it. What I would do is I would try and do what Lisa used to do, or maybe still does, is license that product to a manufacturer. So, for example, if someone has and we get this all the time because we're the largest manufacturer. If someone has this comb, they will contact us and they'll say, look, I have this comb. I don't want to make it myself, but I want to license it to you, and we'll work on a licensing agreement. Now, as it happens with you, Lisa, there was a product. I'm not sure if you've spoken about it on any of your called a French twister.
Yeah.
And Lisa, for those that are on the call here, Lisa developed a product called a French twister, and it allowed the user to do a French twist in the hair where previously they weren't really able to do it themselves. They would have to go to a salon or have somebody else do it. And Lisa made a deal with Scunci to, I hope I'm saying this right, to license that product, to sell this French twist. And it became very successful. We sold a lot of them. Lisa made a lot of money. We made a lot of money. And had Lisa decided to, I'm not doing this, this money's not good. I pour my heart and soul into this thing. I'm going to take it myself. Yeah, I always tell them, you can do it. Go ahead and do it. I mean, the guy that invented the Slinky, he didn't license it to Mattel. He took it himself and he went around the world. But in order to do that, you need a lot of time, you need a lot of perseverance, you need a lot of luck, and you need a lot of money because these retailers are bombarded daily with people who have invented the next greatest thing. Mm-hmm. And it's, we're in an innovative country or world. That's what people do. So just getting an audience with a customer is a major feat. And then once you get the audience, there was a show on TV about some guy invented some wallpaper that had pockets in it. I don't really remember, but he invented this thing, and he went to Walmart, and they followed him to Walmart. And Walmart was interested, and after Walmart was interested, he practically put himself in bankruptcy because he had to do a testing, he had to do a packaging, then they came back and they didn't want the packaging, then they wanted the product earlier, then they wanted the product later, and they wanted the terms. So it can be done. It's possible. I would never counsel anyone to do it directly. I would always counsel people, if they ask for my opinion, to go to try and sell it or license it, make an arrangement with the manufacturer. I think that's the most effective way to do it.
Certainly, licensing has a lot less weak links because you're really only responsible for the front end. Everything else on the back end can be done by, it's like,
I mean, especially today with the supply chain, can you imagine starting a business and now you have to have something made, let's say it has to be made in China. You have to source that thing now? Forget it. You know, with what's going on, in good times, it's hard to do that. In bad times, it's near impossible.
Yeah. And in fact, the only time I think it can make sense is if you enter it like we did with we being me and my mom, with the French twister as an example. We made 500 of them.
Yeah.
And we sold them in little baskets, 12 at a time to stores, which gave me the credibility and I think was a big influence when Neil decided to license it at Scottsdale in the first place. We'd already had our proof in sales.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do a small business and it's a boutique or a niche and you're going to sell locally or even nationally, but in a boutique sort of scenario, that's one thing. If you want to go after these major retailers like Hal is talking about,
you can sell local stores. You can do that.
Yeah, or even direct to consumers now.
You can do that, sure.
Right.
I don't know how many people have the tolerance for that, or how many people are willing to accept that kind of income. In your case, it was really the groundwork for something bigger. But yeah, you can sell short. You can do that. It can be done. It's very, very, very difficult and takes a lot of perseverance.
So Stefan jumped in with a question here. He says, I'll just pop it up here so you can see it also, Hal. Does Conair offer non-electric kitchen tools? If so, who handles that business?
Okay, so non-electric kitchen tools, I assume you mean like spatulas and things like that? We do. We own a company that everybody has heard of, and people don't know this, but Conair owns a company called Cuisinart. And Cuisinart is one of the leading names in the culinary business. It's a separate division. So I have nothing to do with that. It's a completely separate sales force and marketing force. And I do know that they have non-electric products like flatware or tools like spatulas and things like that. So we do that. Not under the Conair name. Under the Conair name, everything non-electric really falls under me. That's not anything without a cord falls in my division. If it has a cord, like a dryer or straightener, that's a separate sales force. We don't get involved in it. I'm almost exclusively hair accessories and brushes.
Okay. Do you happen to know the name of the person who runs the Cuisinart division?
I don't, but I don't.
Okay. So on what I would recommend you do, Stefan, is on LinkedIn, put in Cuisinart as a company and then go to people. And inside people, you probably, if it's the same model as working with the Conair brand, then you would look for the VP of marketing. That's who you are going to submit the product to for licensing.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Thanks, Hal.
Sure.
Jerry asks, what is the trick to get to talk with the manufacturer? For some reason, we just don't respond.
Yeah. So
it's a great question because everybody has it.
Everybody has it, and we have it. It happens to us. There's really no trick to it. I think you come from different places. For somebody like a Conair, it's of course easy. It doesn't matter if it's me or my next door neighbor or my grandmother. If it says Conair after that name, I can get an appointment. I can get a phone call returned. But there was a time that wasn't the case. Or if we enter into a new business, that's not the case at all. So what's the trick? So there's really no trick. Persistence, is important. I used to do things like I would catch buyers in their office, some buyers used to get in their office 6 o'clock in the morning, or they used to work Saturdays. So I would catch them then. You know, sending an email saying, I want to circle back on this, that's not going to do it. They get thousands of those a day. They're not going to be interested. If you send a sample of something, then you have a whole situation where, well, is it going to be non-disclosed, or how are you going to do that? I think if I was going to counsel someone, like I said, that the way to do that is to license the product. Then that way, if you license the product to someone like us, we're going to get an audience. We're going to get an appointment. If you want to do it yourself, you probably should find a manufacturer's rep or a broker, someone who knows that business, who knows that customer, who can get an appointment. And you take the case of Costco or Sam's. Everybody wants to sell Costco and Sam's because they do tremendous volume, but they have very specific ways of doing business, and they're not secret. You walk into Costco, you see the merchandise on pallets, and it's wrapped, and it's this and it's that. Well, you don't know how to do that. You don't even know where to go, who the buyer is. Yeah, you can look online. You can find the buyer, and that's occasionally that'll work. But to use Jerry's word, the trick is to find somebody who knows that business, and it's going to cost you a little money. Maybe you don't want to pay a rep to do your business, to sell, but there's a reason why it costs that. It's because it's worth it. So the trick is find somebody who knows the business, find somebody who knows the customer. That's your best odds to get something in.
Right on. And I'll add, so that's with addressing going after retailers. I'll add to that, Jerry, with regard to going after manufacturers slash distributors. I have in fact, let me pop this up here for you really quick. I have on YouTube, if you go here to my YouTube channel and you type in sell sheet, I have a free tutorial that you can watch and a download even with a template. It's not pretty. It's not intended to be. It's more important to learn the elements necessary to pitch your product to a potential licensee. If you don't establish that there's a problem that everyone agrees is a big enough problem for enough people, and you then show them how your solution is dramatically better than all the competition that says that they solve that same problem, there's a system for doing that. And then the last element that's really important, in addition to big enough problem for enough people, my solution solves the problem better than the competition. Here's a reason to believe it will get that job done. And so often that looks like a prototype or a model, or if you're lucky and it's really simple, you can do it with a photo, sketches, or 3D model instead of actually building a prototype. But most of the time I build at least a working model, because
now,
that ties it up.
If you look at, and I know, Lisa, you have experience in this with Shark Tank. A lot of times when I watch that program, what I see are people who have really good ideas, and they want to or need some help in taking that idea to the next level. And I forget who it is, the guy that owns the Mavericks. I don't know, one of the Sharks. He's Cuban.
Mark Cuban, yeah.
Every once in a while, somebody will say, a person that's trying to get money will say, well, the diaper business is worth $14 billion. If we can only get 1% of that business, and he stops them, because you can't do business that way. Just by saying, all I need is 1%. Yeah, I'd like to have 1% too. But and they don't know how to value their businesses. They don't know what it's worth. They'll ask for ridiculous amounts of money based on potential. But you really need to understand, like Lisa says, what this item can do. And the ones that are successful do that. They present a problem, they present a solution, and then they present a way of handling that solution. A lot of times they just don't have the financial wherewithal to do it, and that's why these sharks will help them.
That's a really good point too, Hal, because the thing that pops into mind is Bounty. They have dominated the category for 20 plus years,
right?
All by being the quicker picker upper.
Mm-hmm.
And so the value proposition is, compared to others, we're stronger and we pick up faster. And the reason to believe is They put it on a counter and you can see it soak it up right next to the leading competitor, and boom. That's obvious to say, I need to buy that. In the same way a company would say, it's obvious I need to license that. So I hope that helps answer your question. If it doesn't, feel free to drop more details in the comments for us, Jerry. Let's see here. LinkedIn user, I'm not sure who you are, but thank you for your question. How do you know a licensed product will sell if you practically not selling it to the consumer?
So I think what this question is, I have this idea. It's a great idea, a great product, but I don't have any sales history on it. How do I know it's going to sell?
Oh, yeah.
That's the way I interpret that question.
I do know.
You don't know. So you have to try and mitigate the risks. And how do you mitigate the risks? Well, there are companies who will help you decide if that is a product that will sell. There are marketing studies you can do. You can do focus groups. And I have mixed feelings about focus groups, but there are things you can do. You can test, like one of the ways Lisa said was selling to these boutiques. You can look for similar products, but you really do not know unless you get it out there. But you can try and dig into a little bit, like we talked about. If somebody invented a comb that has some kind of magical properties to it, how do you know it's going to sell? Well, you really don't, but you can look at, hey, such and such a company sold this comb, or this comb is sold in Sally's Beauty Supply, and look how well it sells. Or you can hire consultants. You can do things with, people like Lisa who will guide you and will give you an educated opinion. But you really don't know until it happens.
Right on. So when you license too, you also have the opportunity to have that company, not just the back office supporting making and selling it, but marketing and promoting it.
Right.
They're going to make sure it gets in the most stores that have the most traffic. They're going to support it with the marketing, whether that's publicity or traditional advertising or sponsorships or whatever, to help educate the consumer and give that product the best odds for success.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's the same process for you, Hal, right? When you're pitching a buyer, that it would be for me to pitch your company for license. I still have to show what it is, how it compares to others, why it's better, and give you a reason to believe it'll get the job done. And then the buyer at the end of the day just has to make a decision.
Yeah. And if it's something that's just a pattern or a fabric, that's much easier to do. But if you have something that's innovative,
right.
Now, I'll just give you one example that really kind of changed our whole industry. And everybody knows what a hair tie is, or a braided elastic. They're the little round things, and they were sold forever in little plastic bags for 99 cents. Mm-hmm. And they were held together by a metal grommet, a piece of metal. So it was a hair tie with a piece of metal on the end of it. And what would happen when the woman would take it out of her hair, would always pull her hair out, and that's just the way it was. It was 99 cents, and you had to, if you wanted a hair tie, you had to do that. Yes, so this guy that I worked for, and Lisa worked for one time, developed a hair tie that did not have the grommet. So it was fabric all the way around. It was double the price of the ones with the grommet. And now, when you go to buy a hair tie, unless you go to buy it at a Dollar Tree or someplace, it will always be grommet free. And we called it no damage. Yeah. And that's what really that created a whole industry. But we had to. But when the first time we went, we took it around. We would say, here's the item. It's going to be double the price of what you sell now. Well, I can't do that. I can't give up that 99 cent business. Well, why don't you keep the 99 cent business and put this right next to it for $1.99? And we know what happens. And once somebody used that particular item and didn't pull their hair out, that's all they bought.
That's the story. And then this whole no damage industry blew up.
That's it, yeah.
Make that. And I remember that because when I brought Weave and Wave, the pitch was, this is a roller, a no damage crimper.
Right.
Pitch, because no damage was the trending phrase.
Right.
And it got the deal done. I will add to your point with selling and answering that question about how you know. At the end of the day, you could get all the way through a licensing deal and you could both be wrong. Mm-hmm. The company the buyer, the company, and you are all wrong because it gets in front of the consumer and everyone overestimated or maybe didn't market it the right way or didn't package it, whatever, it could still fail.
Right.
And that's just devastating.
Yeah.
I had it happen. We did. In fact, we even waived the one I just explained. Perfect example, because it ended up being packaged in black. No one knew what it was. There were a lot of questions around it. And unfortunately, that basically made me no money other than the advance.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember?
I do remember. Yes.
Yeah. What kind of feedback did you get from buyers? And then we'll come back to questions real quick. But do you remember any of the details on that?
I really don't, Lisa. I don't remember specifically what happened with that particular product, but that is certainly a case study on how this can happen for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, okay. So back to questions here. Hal, can you please explain to that previous question, the person who asked the previous question, also why you have mixed feelings about focus groups?
Okay. So
I'll let you answer.
Focus groups, I don't think are always objective. So if you take, let's say we want to see if a purple scrunchie will sell. So we'll go into a focus group and we'll put it on the table and we'll say, what do you think of this purple scrunchie? And people will give you long, drawn out explanations as to what their feelings of a purple scrunchie is. Well, my grandmother used to have one, and I have purple shoes. And when in reality, that person is going, that customer, that consumer is going to Walmart and making a decision on a purple scrunchie in 3 seconds, literally 3 seconds. So I think sometimes we give the focus group is a little bit too much power, where the power really isn't really deserved. Now, take the case of like razor blades or something. Yeah, now you can try different razor blades, and then you can make an educated guess. But they'll ask the person, well, would you pay $10 for this purple scrunchie? And a lot of times people will just say yes because they don't want to appear like they're cheap. But in reality, of course they wouldn't. So I think they have some benefit, but I think they're a little bit overused, especially in products like ours, which are sometimes emotional and fashion-based.
Right on. I did a video yesterday or Monday that I just dropped on YouTube that's really all about early consumer insights and understanding the buying and use behavior behind a certain product. And if you take the time to understand, say, for example, I want to invent a new way to put up French twists because technology's changed, times have changed, the style of a twist, it used to be high and tight, now it's loose and messy, all that's changed. So let's say I just wanted to invent a new one. My first step now would be to go out and actually observe people who already wear French twists, what they do, how they do it, various other styles, what they do and how they do it, so that I can see the problem and the pain point and where the breakdown is, and then invent a better solution for it. To me, that's way more valuable than a focus group could ever be.
Right.
Yeah, I get to observe in the natural habitat. Scott Cook at Intuit calls it follow me homes. And they still do it. It's still their best practice to this day. That's the reason Intuit is a global phenomenon. They're the biggest financial software in the world.
Yeah.
And they still do follow me homes to this day. Okay. Hi, Jim. Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining. Hi, Al. Guys are all coming in now. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit behind on the questions here. It looks like, oh no, maybe I am caught up. Lisa, would Hal be generous enough to look at a golf sell sheet?
I'm not sure. Oh, you mean one that Paul's created?
Yeah. Do you golf?
Yeah, sure. Have him email it to me. Sure.
All right. So here, I'm going to pop up Hal's email address for all y'all, but do not abuse this because he's here for me as a favor. So quick, short, succinct, with gratitude emails. If you have a question for him, there's his email address. Just don't abuse it or he'll never come back and we won't get to enjoy this conversation again.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
There's Hal's contact information. I think I'm caught up on our questions. Feel free to drop some more in the comments. If I've missed it, I apologize, drop another. And we're running up on time anyway. We've only got about 15 minutes left here. So Hal, when someone internally, does Conair have R&D people that invent new products now, or is it just more marketing like it was at Scuncy, focusing on how to continue to grow the line with other products?
No, we do have R&D people, and all companies our size do have R&D people because it allows us to be independent and design our own merchandise. So while innovation is important and it comes from people like you, yeah, we have to have R&D people. If you look at the biggest consumer product companies like P&G or Unilever, they have tremendous R&D divisions. And one of the things that I always like to tell people, probably everybody has a Swiffer in their kitchen or wherever their closet.
Right.
Before Swiffer came out, nobody needed one. Nobody did, but P&G decided, you know what? Let's create a broom or whatever you want to call it. And how many billions of dollars have they made off of that thing? Because that's an R&D item. That's now they have the beads that you put in your washing machine before you. Nobody knows if they work, but you see commercials every 5 minutes. Downy Unstoppable.
Right.
Put a cap full of this. Nobody knows. Nobody knew about that. Nobody heard it. But if it's not for R&D, you don't get that.
Right. Does R&D and or marketing engage the sales department or people from sales when they're innovating?
If it should be that way, and frequently my experience is it is that way. But I do know some companies where it is not that way. When you have a collaboration with, and not just the salespeople, with operations and with shipping and advertising, creative, when you have a collaboration with everybody, that's when you have the best chance for success.
Absolutely. We've had a couple people on who are front end consultants for large organizations. One of them I work with and have had the privilege of working with some pretty big companies.
Mm-hmm.
And that is at the core, the most important principle or best practice in why we've been so successful in helping create products like the American Express Black Card, the PT Cruiser, Gatorade. Right. I mean, these are all came out of the companies that I'm working with. And it's all because we brought in the diversity.
Yeah.
Right. You can approach it from your angle. When we're solopreneurs, when we're independent inventors, we don't have that luxury, and it can be a challenge. So
plus nobody really likes to be told, you have to sell this. This is a new, I'm sure the Procter & Gamble people, when they invented the Swiffer, had conversations with their salespeople. So listen, this is what we're thinking of doing. What do you think of it? Rather than just coming out with it and saying, here, go sell this.
So who evaluates the sales at a large organization that then says we need to either address how we're pitching and presenting this product, or we need to innovate on this product to make it better? Who's evaluating the benchmark for success on that?
See, when it comes to the line of merchandise that I'm in, it often doesn't come down to a specific item. It will come down to like a whole program. Like we need new packaging. Yeah, we need new packaging, or we need new pricing, or we need some category that we're not in. That if you look at other companies that I don't have experience with, it's probably more item focused, but in our line of business, it's more program focused than item focused.
Gotcha. And that's probably true from a management. It's broken. Can you see how it could be just innovation in general to grow a company, to add to the top line, and ultimately that bottom line that could be done better? But that's so interesting. The machine is working, and until it's so broken that it's not working, they probably won't improve it.
Right now, most manufacturers are worried about getting product rather than selling product.
Right. That makes sense.
I'm not talking out of school. I mean, you could turn on CNBC any morning and they show you the port of Los Angeles with all the container ships there. It's not something that I see going away anytime soon. So we're more concerned about getting merchandise.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could just go into a store and you can see
it.
Yeah. Shelves are empty. Deb asks, hi Deb, by the way. So can Can you
Can she
license
license to more than one company?
one company? Is that a wise decision?
So I'm going to let Lisa answer this, but my opinion is if you can figure out a way to do that, that'd be a great idea. But I don't think that any company who likes your idea and wants it, I wouldn't, would allow you to take it to a competitor.
Right. That's why licensing it to a company that has the most distribution is in your best interest, because they're already in enough doors. And what you're licensing, Deb, is that the competitive advantage that you're handing them on a silver platter because it has intellectual property on it. If you take that away and make it a non-exclusive agreement, you've taken away that competitive advantage, which is the biggest reason that they're interested in licensing any kind of external properties. So that's one reason that most companies won't do it. Having said that, here is your workaround. The times that it's not necessary to do an exclusive would be when it is only that company only has distribution in a specific channel and your product fits in other channels, other categories. So like with my CO2 airbrush, I licensed it. I should say we gave the rights to Helen of Troy, one of Conair's competitors.
Yeah, I remember that.
I know.
I came to Tucson that day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So they only had the right in the categories that they had distribution in, which was cosmetics, and they made 3 SKUs for it. I retained the rights, and I could still go then sell it or license it again to cake decorating, for example, and to automotive aftermarket, because it had all these different use cases and applications.
Right.
So that would be a one-off opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
Just depends. Okay, if that doesn't answer your question, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope that clears that up for you.
But mostly nobody will talk to you unless you are willing to make an exclusive or semi-exclusive arrangement with them.
Right. Do you remember any times that you had a new product that you thought, whether you innovated internally or it was brought in from external sources, where you just were convinced the whole company was just on this high, it was going to be a huge win, and it didn't quite turn out the way you expected it?
Yes. I don't want to get into specifics, but a lot of times when we see new products, when they're presented to us, if you've been in the business a long time, you have the ability to guess this is going to work or this is not going to work. And sometimes a company will come out with a product that they have as a strategic initiative, and they want everybody to sell it. And you know that this is not going to sell. So one of two things happens in that case. We could sell it. We'll sell it in, but now it has to sell out. So if we sell it in, and we probably can because of the way we do business, and it doesn't sell out, well, that's a failure. Or in some cases, if you have enough credibility, you could just not sell it. And that's a little dangerous, because if the item is proven successful, then it's bad for you. But a lot of times you can tell this item's not going to go. So
interesting. And that's just because you're out in the field, right? You've got boots on the ground, you're talking to the buyers, you know what's working, what's not, and why. And that gives you better insight, I guess, into what's going to work and what won't.
A lot of times it's pricing too. If you come out with a new innovation, maybe you have to pay an inventor, maybe you have to pay for molds or something, so you want to get a higher retail. So sometimes it's strictly on price. You can't do it. I mean, if you're selling a comb for $2 and somebody invents a better comb for $4, well, I can pretty much tell you the better one's not going to sell.
But then you go back to your hair tie example where
that's right.
If the product is better enough that it can carry the demand for that price point.
We all knew that would sell. There was no question in our mind that was an innovation. It was a revolution, and we all knew it would sell. So yeah, you're right.
So good. Okay, so Deb asks, I thought it was Deb. Sorry, I'm sorry. Oh, it's Ricky. Hey, Ricky, thanks for joining. Do you have a general sense for how long it takes to go from let's license this invention product to being available in stores, which is interesting because you just said you're working on 2023 right now.
Right. I mean, I think you have a better idea of that. I mean, right now, forget about the supply chain. If things were normal, you still need if you have an item that you can source from overseas, if it's domestic, it's better, but of course the price is an issue. If you have an item that you can source overseas and there's no supply chain issue, you're probably still going to need 6 months just to have production lined up, get the packaging lined up. And that's assuming you have everything else in line. That's assuming you have your warehousing done, you have all of your testing done. There are so many, and we don't really play in those things because of the nature of the product we sell. But everything that's consumed, but eaten or you drink something, you know, the testing and the quality assurances on that will probably take you longer than that.
Slow it down even more.
Yeah.
So if someone were to license to, in your category where it is your domain expertise, right in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And it was very easy to, maybe they'd even been selling them. So factory, all that stuff was all set up. It's just a matter of putting it into your packaging now and getting it in. Can you still sell it into the same year, into the planogram, or is it too late? Do you have to wait until at least the following year to get in?
So everybody will say you can't do it. But if you have something that's that important and that revolutionary and you're sure it's going to sell, you can do it. So it's easy for somebody to just say, oh, come see me in September when I do my review. But when CBD oil was introduced, I don't think Walgreens waited till September. I think they took it when it was available. So if you have something that's really going to work, you can do it anytime.
That is such good information. That's so good. All right, we're wrapping up some time here. We've got about 4 minutes left. So if you've got questions, now's the time to drop them. And don't forget, there's a little bit of delay in what I'm saying and when you're hearing it is
all right. So I see that Tony,
Tanya wants to know.
Email me. I'll give you the person to do that.
I actually have this, Tanya, but that's okay.
Yeah.
There's Hals.
And I don't want to say the name over the broadcast, but I'll give you that information.
Yep. And we have that available also.
Medical product. God bless you. I can't imagine trying to sell medical. I mean, if you know that business, I know nothing about it, but I can only imagine that the requirements on that are very stringent.
Yeah, exactly. It really I know in Treva's case, it's a device, but I still don't even know really enough of the details to be able to give you real feedback on that, Treva.
Yeah.
I can say though, with Conair, they have a very simple process. It's just email the person and she'll get back to you and let you know. And I'll just give you one little bit of advice. I don't really know how to say this, but I know.
if you have something that you think is really a great item and you take it to manufacturer A because they're the largest, somehow if you let them know that the clock is ticking and manufacturer B wants it, but you would much rather do business with them, it makes them a little bit more anxious to take a look at it. And that's just human nature. I mean, right. You go to buy a car and if they tell you, yeah, you can't have it in black, well, you want it in black. So instead of just saying, here's my idea, here's my item, what do you think? You know, do a little bit of homework. I know your company does this. I've seen you do this. I've seen you do that. Your competitors do the same thing. I'd much rather do business with you. If you can answer me by 30 days, we'll talk. If not, I appreciate your time. I'm going to go to company B. You're taking a risk because you really, it's hard to backtrack off of that, but sometimes that is effective.
Yeah, no, it creates urgency. Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, when I pitched the French Twister, the first one that I did with Scunsy, Neil's first question was, after my whole little song and dance, was, who else are you showing this to? That's a buying question, right? Yeah. That's a buying question. So I said, well, everybody. Yeah. I'm doing what I need to do to get this out there. And he said, stop talking to everybody. Let's just agree on that first. And then of course that led to the negotiations and closing the deal.
Yeah, it's great.
So most people, I don't know if the general public knows this, but originally it was my mother who found Scunsy because you only had like 3 SKUs back then.
Yeah.
And we'd already gone through the song and dance with Goody, but they just got acquired by Newell Rubbermaid. And so we had a contract in hand. Yeah. And the woman said, I can't do this right now. We're being Newellized.
Well, timing is everything.
It was timing, right? And then my mother found you and it was around Christmas. And she called me and said, are you interested in reaching out to this company? They're real small. I said, of course I am.
Yeah, right.
At this point. And Neil answered the phone. He was the CEO of the founder of the company, because it was Christmas and everybody else was gone.
He was working.
He was working, and that's how I got the CEO on the phone. Plus, they were small, but still. Okay. So good timing. Timing is everything. So it looks like we've answered all our questions. We're about up on the hour. Hal, I cannot thank you enough. All of you, please hit that like button, show your support, or drop a comment here and let him know how much you appreciate him being here with us today.
All right. Always good to see you, Lisa. I don't know how you look the same as you did 25 years ago. But,
this is not the
same. I'm looking at your face, but that looks the same. Anyway, filter. Yeah, I need one of those filters. All right. Well, thanks for asking me, and I really enjoyed this.
I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate all of you giving us your time today. You have a wonderful day. We'll see you. Nope, next week is next week Christmas, or is it the following?
Not next week. Nope. No, next week.
I'll see you next week. The following week we'll be taking off. Y'all have a great week. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye, everybody.